Hey, what is up? I want to take a moment here and we're going to talk about value. Value. What makes something valuable? Well, it's very context dependent, it's subjective. There is no such thing, at least in the tangible world, that gives something inherent value. And why does this matter? Well, just right off the bat, earlier today, and today is Thursday, March 10th, by the way, that I'm recording this. It was announced that inflation rates were officially 7.9% on paper, which means they're probably closer to 15 to 20 if you include things like food and gas and other things that they like to refrain from reporting on to improve their numbers. But regardless, even if it's just 8%, that's 8% of your value, your buying power, that's been thrown into the trash can. Unless you're making 8% a year or in a bonus, you are losing money. You are losing buying power. Now, the pieces of paper that you have, those are worth the same amount of money in that you can burn them. They have the same literal worth, but we don't live our lives based on what things can do in that regard. Fiat currency. A lot of people like to say that gold and maybe even Bitcoin, well, they're not fiat currencies, so they have inherent value, but they really don't have inherent value either. You know, gold, what does it do? Like, yeah, you can have micro amounts of it in your diet. You can use it for dental and a couple electrical components. In what context is that really going to help you, though? How many of us actually are going to be in a desert or in a tundra or in the woods while it's snowing and say, you know what I need for my survival right now? You know what would keep me alive? What I could really use right now is a hunk of heavy metal. No, that's going to weigh you down. That's going to be difficult if you don't need it in that context. Value is very context dependent. We are losing buying power. Our fiat currency is being debased. We need to find value in other things. You can find value in tangible things. And I'm not saying that there's not value in gold, in Bitcoin, in your portfolio of stock market investments. I have them. I have all of those. But they're not what you should be depending on. And I think that this time right now is so good at demonstrating that. None of these things have value. None of them are going to keep you alive. If you need these things, or if these things only work when everybody is agreeing that they work, when they only have value because everybody agrees that they are valuable to us, then your value is extremely, extremely vulnerable. Because as soon as the facade that keeps all this stuff operating on a daily basis goes away, you have no value. Do you have food? Do you have water? Do you have vitamins? Do you have antibiotics? Do you have any of these basic survival things? If you don't, then you're really not rich. Not in a practical sense. Not unless you are dependent on other people. And do you really want to be dependent on people for all of the value that you have? I don't. I have all those things, and that's great. But I also want to be reliant on just myself. And that might sound super self-centered, like, oh, you just want to be reliant on yourself and you're so self-centered. It's not about that. They say you're supposed to diversify your portfolio. This is the ultimate way to diversify your portfolio. Do you have 3 days of food? Everybody should have at least 3 days of food. And water. Don't forget water. That's the big one. That's what, 9 gallons of water right there that you need for 3 days. Do you have that? If you don't have that, why don't you build that? You know, spend however much that'd be. You know, $30. $30. And that's pretty high quality food. You can do it a lot cheaper than that. You could do it for $5-10. But just, let's say $30. Well, in a disaster, that is essential. Everybody is advised to have at least 3 days. FEMA, they tell you they need to have 3 days because after 3 days is when they hope they'd be able to get to you and extract you. And even they admit that in more major disasters, they cannot do that. It might be more like 3 weeks in really bad situations. especially if you just lose power and you don't have the money to go somewhere else, to relocate during a disaster. You're going to need at least 3 weeks of supplies. But in that context, with 3 weeks, you are still dependent on other people. How about going to 3 months? After 3 months, you still might be dependent. But that gives you 3 months to determine your situation and not rely on other people. Ideally, we want to never be reliant on other people. I'm even reliant on other people to a degree because I do not have tons of property or a homestead to grow all of my stuff right now. I would love that. I don't have that ability. So I recognize that other people, different people have different capabilities. But we need to be as prepared as we can be based on our capability. And it's not hard to go from one stage of capability to the next. If you're at 3 days, aim for 3 weeks. If you're at 3 weeks, aim for 3 months. If you can, grow some plants in your backyard. If you know a backyard, I plant them in my apartment. Keep them in your apartment. There's ways to maximize these things. And it might not seem really viable right now, but even if it just supplements the food that you do have, those are nutrients. Those are tastes that are going to keep you from going insane 3 months of eating rice and beans. And honestly, I'm just kind of rambling at this point, but the entire point of this video was value. A lemon from the store right now might be worth $1. But when you've eaten nothing but rice and beans for 3 months and you want to shoot yourself, how much is a lemon worth? I bet you for a lot of people, that useless $100 bill in 3 months, when it's no longer worth more than a penny, you would happily give that for a lemon, for an apple, for name whatever little piece of food you want. Value is context dependent. And we, right now, as a nation, are losing the value because people are not valuing it anymore. You know, right now a big thing is that the US might not be a reserve currency for much longer. And, you know, you might look at that and say, okay, well, there's tons of other nations that don't have a reserve currency. They're not at the top of the game right now, but they are world powers. You can think of Russia. They are a world power. They're not the reserve currency. Matter of fact, their reserve currency is, their currency, the ruble, is worth so little right now. But they're still a world power. They're still one of the largest players. Well, do you know what a good salary in Russia is in US dollars before all the Russia-Ukraine stuff? $1,000. That'd be a really good salary. I couldn't afford my apartment for $1,000 in America, and not even like a city or anything like that. Value is dependent. Russia right now, I've seen a lot of Americans. I saw a YouTube video just recently. People saying, oh, prices aren't that bad in Russia in a grocery store because it costs the same that it does here in America. That means it costs them 4 times as much as you. It's not the same. $1 to them is worth about 4 times as much as it is to us because they make so much less. In America, you would be hard pressed to survive on 1,000. Over there, it goes further. But when things get bad, like they are right over there right now, that hurts them even more. A pair of underwear, it's like 2 for $7, and this isn't like high quality underwear. This isn't not even like, I don't know, Calvin Klein. This is grocery store underwear. $3.50 a pair. That works out to be what, 14 bucks? If it's worth 4 times as much, something like that, if I did the math right. Imagine paying $14 for a junky pair of underwear. Yeah. Our economy is in a bad way. We could get there pretty quickly, especially if we lose our status as reserve currency. Find value in things that are not fiat currency, that aren't even reserve currency. That's not gold, not Bitcoin. Those are great. They're not going to get you through. They're not going to keep you alive. They're not the ultimate value. But that's about it. Don't really have any much more to say on that, at least for now. I probably will later. And I'm sorry for this rant, but if you enjoyed it, I'm glad. You can do whatever you want. See you around.